much news do you really need, and how do you get it without any ads, clutter, or clickbait? Hi, everyone. I'm Ed Garston, and welcome to episode 142 of Tales from the Beat. And my special guest on this episode is Kira Shishkin, who is the creator and CEO of an intriguing new news by text service called Informed.now. Hi, Kira. Welcome in.
Hey Ed, thank you for having me.
You bet, you bet. It is intriguing. We've seen various sort of text services where people where you get news flashed on your phone or computer or whatever before, but this sounds new. So I'm wondering if you could just talk about first of all, so we understand what Inform.now is and what the rationale is behind it.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like it doesn't take, a long study or a long research to discover that folks are pretty overwhelmed with news today. Folks have
Yeah.
stopped reading. There's really high, like record high news avoidance. But we find that it isn't for a lack of curiosity or for a lack of a desire to connect and understand the world that you inhabit. It's
Mhm.
rather frustration with the systems that currently govern the media ecosystem, right?
Sure.
And they really, are quite, it's quite sad, right? Because so much of the media that is fed to us is fed for incentives that are not aligned with our own, right? They're advertisement incentives, they're sponsor incentives, they are algorithm or tech platform incentives. They
Yeah.
are not pushed to us because we want them. They're pushed to us because they're looking to trigger, engage, capture our attention as much as possible. I think the amount of ads in news has reached a tragic high, a tragic maximum. And we're a news research company that's looking to revive the dignity of being informed without being influenced. And we do that through SMS, like the most simple, minimalist format we're aware of. And
Sure.
we send highly concise, signal-rich, very low on noise news summaries to our subscribers, to our readers. That is
Mhm.
a product of our news research. And we do that every single day of every weekday, so that in the morning when put up, take out your phone,
Yeah.
within about 30 seconds, you can get informed on what's happening around you without spending hours of triangulating, cross referencing, cross researching, fact checking everything, because that's exhausting.
Yeah.
But there is no other way to get information these days. So we do that hard work for you.
Yeah, it's I did sign up for it in preparation for this, and I got my first installment, I guess, briefing this morning. And just for reference, everybody knows we're recording this on June 29th of 2026. So you'll know when I talk about the news stories that I got, why we're talking about those stories. But I thought, Kira, what we could do is because I'm really interested in the sourcing of the story and the links that you have with each story, and then I'd love to know how you choose. And so, for the benefit of our audience, let me just run down what I got this morning real quickly. I'm not going to read all the text, obviously, but today, the first U.S. strikes Iranian military sites after an attack on a merchant vessel off Oman, and the link for people that want more was to a story by the Associated Press. And then there was Europe records unprecedented heat wave, and the link was to BBC. And the third one was UK repeals Vagrancy Act. The link was to government.uk. Number four, Ukraine launches largest drone attack since Russia's 2022 invasion, CBS News. And the fifth one was federal judge orders DOJ to produce unredacted portions of Epstein files. And the link was to a court document on courtlistener.com. And the last one was Russian occupied Crimea declares state of emergency. And the link is to The Guardian. So, my question, Kira, is one, how do you choose which stories are going to make the briefing, and how do you choose which particular links you're going to attach to each of those stories?
Totally. And thank you for kind of sharing the preview of the text
Sure.
and highlighting, each source. That's really helpful. And I think, let me first answer on the curation question of how do we determine what is significant, and then we can get into the sourcing, which is also a very important part of what we do. And we have a whole philosophy around that.
Okay.
So on the curation side, we focus on impactful news. That is our MO. That is kind of what we've set out to do. The whole experiment is if we only have a limited amount of time per day to read the news, what should make that cut, right? And so our answer to that is not the most sensationalist, not the most blown up, not the celebrity gossip, not the sports.
Mhm.
But if you only had like 30 seconds a day to read the news, it should be the things that change the world the most. And
Right.
so we evaluate that impact based on two questions. One is the number of people being affected, right? So it has a bit of a utilitarian model philosophy to it. Is number of people being affected. Usually, we're looking at millions or hundreds of thousands. It is very rare, if ever, for us to report on something that is hyper local or very small. We're looking at scales that are, population size and multi-population size.
Mhm.
The second question is how much is the change? And so we're looking here not at just changes in inconvenience, changes in like, oh, some people are annoyed. We're looking
Right.
at shifts in optionality for households. We're looking at shifts in safety, in security, in a level of freedom, a level of consumer confidence, a level of business confidence, things that are affecting the way entire systems and populations live, evolve, and function. And so it
Right.
has to be a pretty severe change, right?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
tariff changes, right? Wartime updates,
Mhm.
large climactic events. These are things that we look at because of their level of severity of change. So these two questions, are the guiding ones that tell us about the impact of a story, and that's how we prioritize. And we also try to always like also rank them, right? So the first is the most important is first, and they're always descending in importance.
Okay.
Now that's like philosophy around curation. Let me just pause here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, it reminds me of because for many years in my past, I produced newscasts, right? I was a producer at CNN and then local news before that. So it reminds me of building a newscast rundown and especially when you're saying top story and working your way down. And there's various criteria for that. And one is, identifying your audience and what really hits home with them and what is going to be of interest to them. I'm just wondering then, before we get to the annotations, I mean, what other criteria are there? I mean, I guess I'm curious about your process. Who do you have an editorial meeting? Do you decide yourself? I mean, how is all these decisions coming to fruition?
Yeah. Um, we look at a scale of impact that is so, radically elevated from like neighborhood drama
Hmm.
and, celebrity gossip that it actually on any given day, the amount of things that hit that level of threshold of importance is actually
Yeah.
pretty limited, right? So we starting out, we thought, okay, will it be too much, too much news to curate, it'll be too much. But in reality, when you look at our scale of what we call world-changing world news,
Okay.
there are actually very few things on a daily basis that
Mhm.
qualify for that level of importance. So it makes our job a lot easier because we don't look at like local news, national news, any kind of small news, or
Mhm.
even thematic like niche news, for example, like developments in technology,
Yeah.
developments in politics specifically. We look at world-changing world news, and in that regard, there actually are very few things per day that really make the cut. And so
Sure.
we actually often face the opposite problem of not having to prioritize many different competing events, but having to decide, okay, in the absence
Mhm.
of, a world-changing phenomenon on a Tuesday, what
Right.
is worth surfacing to our readers that
Mhm.
is still at the scale and the editorial kind of philosophy that we have.
Yeah.
So a lot of that actually comes down to research, where if you look at the text from this morning, right, one of the stories, actually number two,
Mhm.
is really like a research study, right? It's a mix of observations
Mhm.
rather than a certain like event, like the UK repeals the Vagrancy Act or Ukraine launches
Yes.
drone strikes. Right, these are like events that we would have to prioritize, but
Yeah.
very often we have a space to introduce um, I guess it's non-event based reporting, which is what we primarily focus on.
Okay.
And so in those moments, we surface things that are changing the human condition in meaningful ways. So we look at patterns that are cultural, social, climactic, like climate related,
Hmm.
um, that sort of give clarity to the world that we live in. And so, ironically, it's kind of the opposite problem. We
Yeah.
are never, we're more often at a shortage of news than we are at an overwhelm, given
Okay.
the scale and importance that we look at.
So it sounds like you're choosing stories based on what you think people need to know, as opposed to other philosophy of news of things people want to know. Now, you can argue that Taylor Swift's wedding, right? That's something that's going to pull in a rather large audience among a certain type of people. Stuff like that you could say is going to, well, you've seen TV newscasts, whatever it is, that gets people to stay with the news source, right? Whether they're teasing or these are those types of they used to call them water cooler stories when people actually had water coolers and not bottles of water.
Yeah.
Those type of stories, um, are those totally, could they never make the feed if it's that kind of story that might have international interest? Maybe it's a World Cup,
Yeah.
which has a huge audience. Are those the type of stories that really wouldn't make the feed, or could they possibly make it?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's exactly right. In a world where every media company is optimizing for sensationalism or
Mhm.
some kind of like entertainment value of sorts,
Yeah.
we absolutely reject that entire premise. We do
Hmm.
not cover celebrity news in any capacity. We do not cover sports news in any capacity. We do not cover any form of like political drama or political gossip. We
Interesting.
only look at things that are like 100% confirmed, and we feel a confidence through a mix of primary sources,
Mm.
multiplicity of primary reporting, where we can see, okay, yeah, this is an event that has happened, and we understand what it means, and we understand like what the event is essentially, and
Okay.
we are comfortable talking about it. We would never talk about something that we don't fully like understand, and our readers expect that as well, right? So our readers
Okay.
expect that when they're getting something from inform.now, it isn't like this breaking news speculation
All right.
or a clickbait sensationalism around some celebrity wedding. It
Hmm.
is the kind of must know item that is going to be described in a no nonsense, no noise way,
I see.
and such that they only have to read it once. They don't have to go and cross
Mm.
check and cross reference it from other folks.
Yeah.
We're going to do the hard work of making sure that the stuff that is essential world knowledge, the essential, like, understanding the world around you,
Hmm.
that we're producing credible research to enable that confidence with our reader. And
I see.
so the times we do talk about, like, we've had a FIFA, the World Cup
Hmm.
item show
Yeah.
up in our newsroom over the last couple of weeks. But it wasn't, like some score or some kind of like sports update. It was actually an observation. Um, I'll read it to you.
Yeah.
It was um, it was on June 18th. It was the number two item. U.S. men's soccer team draws record 28 million viewers during 4-1 World Cup win over Paraguay, marking largest U.S. soccer audience ever and surpassing the 27 million views World Cup
Mm.
finals record.
Okay.
So, here we're not talking about like who's the score, who is winning. We're talking about, a trend of sports viewership that is being represented by FIFA.
Yeah.
And so we rarely, but sometimes talk about these things, but not through the lens of keeping up with sports. There are better places to go for that, but with
Okay.
the lens of like, here are large trends that are significant, that are worthwhile knowing about, that we're gathering. And so
Sure.
sometimes they have to do with sports, but very, very rarely. Generally, my
Okay.
answer to readers who are craving sports or niche topic or celebrity gossip,
Right.
there are better places to go for that.
Okay, fair enough. So how do you decide, which news organizations or which sites you're going to link to for each story?
Totally. And I think that gets us to the question of around sourcing.
Yeah.
We, have the secret weapon that nobody seems to be, it's
Okay.
so obvious, but nobody
Yeah.
seems to be using, which is primary sources, right? It
Okay.
almost feels like, every article you read in traditional news media today,
Yeah.
it's clearly coming, or it's likely coming, you would hope, from a primary source, but they would
Right.
never cite it, directly or openly. It would never provide a link in a way that would be intellectually honest, so the reader can go and interact with the source on their own. We think that's unethical. We think that is, a very lazy, but also very, I think unethical is probably the right word,
Yeah.
of kind of withholding primary information from the reader. And it's needless, right? Like we're all
Sure.
adults here reading the news, and we
Yeah.
should be able to interact with a primary document if that's, the crux of the issue.
Right.
So we have a crazy kind of allegiance to primary documents. We have access to, every central bank, every government bureau in the world,
Mhm.
and we lead with that first, right? If there's an event that is taking place, we're
Right.
going to be reading, scanning, and analyzing the primary documents themselves. So a really good example is the story that you mentioned from earlier this morning around the DOJ, right?
Yeah.
So that goes directly to, that's story number 5. Federal judge orders DOJ to produce unredacted portions of Epstein files or
Right.
show cause why redaction should not be removed by July 2nd after lawsuit alleging DOJ violated Epstein Files Transparency Act,
Mhm.
right? This is a matter that we're not going to take, if we can, from
Right.
some kind of pundit from the Fox News side or from the CNN side or from CNBC or from CBS. Like we're not going to take it from
Yeah.
the commentary layer of news media, which is frankly everybody at this point.
Huh.
We're going to take it directly from the horse's mouth.
Okay. So then, but you do have links to CBS and the BBC, and I mean those aren't primary documents. Then how do you justify linking to them? Then it doesn't seem to be in keeping with your philosophy.
I know, and it's a shame because I wish there was a primary source for everything,
Yeah.
right? I wish there was a some kind of source of truth for every single issue.
Right.
But for example, in today's issue, out of the 6 stories, 2 are primary sources, which is actually pretty low for us, right? So number
Okay.
3 and number 5. Number
Yeah.
3 goes straight to the UK government. Number 5 goes to the court listener is an official DOJ infrastructure. And so that's usually pretty low for us. We prefer and we love when, our usual is more like 4 out of 6 go to
Okay.
primary sources.
Yeah.
And we will always do everything in our ability. That's kind of like the work that we do is to get to the bottom primary source and excavate that. But unfortunately, when you're talking about wartime updates, when you're
Right.
talking about, certain stories that don't really have primary sourcing,
Right.
there is not much that we can do when it comes to getting to
Yeah.
the bottom of the primary source. And so in those events, we rely on what we call primary reporting, which I think you being in the industry would you'd be familiar with. We're looking at the reporting muscles, right? So generally that winds up being the kinds of Bloomberg, Reuters, Associated Press,
Yes.
Association of French Press, where they have the reporting muscle to be out on the ground in the field collecting primary evidence. And there we prioritize, a proximity to the event, right? So if somebody is writing from the New York office about something that's in
Mhm.
the Middle East, there is a
Right.
very low chance that we're going to find that credible. If there are on the ground reporters, right, like in Afghanistan right now, collecting stories, we're going to, give that a lot more weight. And then we also aggregate primary reporting to the extent that we can, or cross-checking multiple sources. Anyone who has been on the ground and has any kind of access to the facts, we look at that as our like second best option.
Okay.
And we don't prefer any particular outlet. Like we don't love AP any more than we love CBS. We don't
Okay.
love CBS any more than we love The Guardian. And we don't really love any of them, to be completely honest. That's why we exist.
Yeah.
But we look at on a story by story basis, right? So if we look at, and this story, for example, number 2 that talks about the BBC is talking about the European heat wave, we feel like the story is written in a way that is insightful and least kind of sensationalized slash least propagandized, and then we take that preference, right? And so it's very much on a story per story. It is not like BBC is favored over AP. It really
Okay.
varies, and reporting across different themes and different geographies also
Right.
changes the credibility of the writing.
It's interesting. I mean, I worked at the AP and I worked at CNN,
Wow.
and I could tell you firsthand. Um, it's interesting that you chose them because those are two places where, during the time that I worked there, which is not recently, there was never never was I ever in all the years I worked there given any editorial direction politically or philosophically. It was just told to tell it correctly, right? To be
Yeah.
accurate. So I'm always glad when I see somebody use, especially the Associated Press and CNN. And I worked at CNN in the first 20 years of existence when it actually didn't look like the Brady Bunch with 18 boxes of talking heads. We actually did news. We actually went
Right.
out and did news stories. So that's interesting. So Kira, I'm especially interested, and I think the audience would be interested to know how many people you have working on the site, and what are some of your backgrounds that give you the basis of being able to make these choices and judgments?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we hire researchers. We don't hire journalists or even reporters, right? Because we do not have our own reporting muscle. We are, I describe our company as a news research company. And
Okay.
the word choice is very intentional because we really care about the research skill set
Hmm.
much more than we care about like the storytelling and the journalism skill set. Even though they're both important in their own different ways, we
Yeah.
find that the news industry needs no more storytelling, but rather more research. How do I define research specifically?
Hmm.
I think fact checking is very much baked into that. I think multi-source, as many sources possible, aggregation of insight and cross checking across them is also pretty deep in that. I think alongside our ability to hunt for the primary source and access it at I would say, extremely efficient and fast way,
Yeah.
um, is definitely like one of our, very much strong suits. And have you ever heard of an approach called OSINT?
How do you say it? Oh,
Uh,
cent.
OSINT. It's an acronym for Open
Okay.
Source Intelligence, which is a methodology that was developed by the CIA and used by the FBI component of the CIA,
Hmm.
for a couple of decades now. And there are handbooks on OSINT all around DC, and it's an analyst and analytical approach to how do you triangulate publicly accessible data in a way that has both a set of methodologies to how do you actually do it, but also a set of standards as to what is credible information and what is not. And
Mm.
so the OSINT skill set, which is, people go to, school, to graduate school to earn it, is
Yeah.
the skill that we kind of train, that we look for, and that we hire for.
I see.
We hire all over the world. So
Hmm.
our team is very international. We don't believe that talent is just here in the US or just, somewhere in Europe. We
Right.
hire all over. And our team is sort of a mix of partnerships, contractors, full time. We actually are proud to have a whole round of interns this summer. We have 4 interns on the team that I'm really excited about, all from the University of Chicago, which is also
Yeah.
my alma mater.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, that's kind of like the whole overview.
Okay, sure. Now, how long ago did you establish in Inform.now, and how many subscribers do you have?
Yeah, so we're in our second year of running, and we are now the number one news by SMS provider in North America. So we serve every single state in the US through our
Mhm.
toll-free number, 844-406-INFO. And
Okay.
also we're live in Canada as of recently. And we also lead in Canada because I think we're the only solution of the kind in Canada. And so we are very much leading the way for this minimalist way of consuming news. And
I
people
see.
are quite hungry for it.
Yeah. So I was able to sign up for free, but how do you make your revenue?
Yeah, we are fully reader supported. And we're very proud of that because that is how we align with the incentives of the reader. Like it's how we align our incentives with the incentives of the reader.
Hmm.
We believe that using advertisement, sponsorship, are ways of selling the reader to the advertiser. And that's what the news industry has done
Okay.
over the last decade, and that's what ruined, it's what ruined CNN. It's what ruined many other ex credible publications,
Yeah.
and it's a shame. And it all begins with taking the money from an actor, a stakeholder that is not the reader. And so
Right.
we refuse to do that. That is, very core in like our mission statement. We are ad-free, bias-free, sponsorship-free, noise-free publication because we only serve the reader.
Okay.
And so the way it works is you sign up completely for free. We lead with value. We give you the power of facts in your palm up front. And then if you find that you are benefiting from our work, you get to contribute. And we keep it intentionally extremely affordable so
Hmm.
that it is accessible to everyday people in North America. It's not meant to be a fancy, expensive information service. It's meant to be a tool in the
Okay.
toolkit of the everyday man.
I see.
And so our pricing is super affordable. You go through a really long kind of free trial of our full research work.
Okay.
You're going through it right now. And then if you find that you are enjoying it, you get to pitch in with a $55 per year subscription, which brings it down to like, $4 a month, less than a cup of coffee in most states.
Yeah.
Uh, and if you do not want to pay, you can stay on our free version, which just gets reduced to being a lot more of a preview rather than the full blown research.
I see. So, okay. So I got the six stories this morning. If I paid for a subscription, how much more would I get?
Right now, you are going through the full version. And
Okay.
so the power of this brief text is not that it comes like, oh, once a day, and here you are, expecting to learn everything.
Yeah.
It's building to a habit. And it's a
Yeah.
habit of taking a look at the news in this no distraction surface area, no distraction environment, just
Yeah.
once a day in the morning for about 30 seconds.
Hmm.
And because we send a text every weekday morning, over the course of about a week or even 2 weeks, most people get hooked. Most people realize that this is the most time efficient way to
Yeah.
stay informed. And over a course of a week to two, you wind up gaining in knowledge of all these different niches of life, from the economy to politics to war and peace to technology to scientific breakthroughs to cultural shifts to climate, where you're getting all of this from one singular trustworthy source that
Yeah.
doesn't monetize anything, beyond
Right.
your support. And so it's not really meant to be like a reading experience of you come and you learn everything, but
Mhm.
rather a habit that becomes core to your life and that is reinforced in empowering you to be informed.
I see. And so you're looking at your service as more of a complement to everything else, because obviously there's many other things out in the world that people want to read about, enjoy reading about, and not limited to six stories that you happen to curate. Do you look at yourself as a compliment, or are you saying that, if you're interested in the news, this is all you need?
It's a little bit of both depending on the person, right? So there are news minimalists among us, which are
Mm.
the folks that we sort of target, folks that
Yeah.
want to know the most impactful stuff, but they are not news junkies, where they do
Mm.
not need to read and know everything out there. And
Right.
so for them, very much we are the sole solution. And that's not something that we impose, it's something they tell us, right? A
Yeah.
lot of people tell us, after a couple of months of being on our platform, they say, hey, I actually like canceled all my other subscriptions. I don't read all the other noise because this is the highest signal to noise
Yeah.
ratio available in the market. And we take that with a lot of pride. We work very hard for that. But then there's this other person that is much more of a news enthusiast. And so they use our platform as a jumping point into being a lot more selective as
Hmm.
to what they want to dive deep on, whether that is one of our stories that we take
Sure.
directly to the horse's mouth,
Yeah.
or is saying, okay, well, I already know about Iran's situation. I can dedicate my free time to reading more of the sports side or reading more of the Taylor Swift wedding
Hmm.
because I already feel confident that I know these other things that I'm informed of now reports on. And so it's a mix, right, for different audience demographics that we
Guess
have.
so. Yeah.
Um, but this is information we learn from our users directly because we have
Sure.
a one-on-one relationship, through SMS with every single user. A lot of what we know about our user base comes directly from the horse's mouth. from the user's mouth in this case.
Okay. That's fascinating. Fascinating. I will have to respectfully disagree with you about something you said earlier that we
Yeah.
don't need more stories because as a journalist, there's always another story that you want to tell, and tragically, we're losing so many journalists through layoffs, through people getting out of the business, that there are a lot of great stories out there that probably should be told and aren't able to be told because we're losing journalists. And to me, that's a huge tragedy because as a journalist, my fun in life. Now I've been retired now this month 10 years, but I'm still in journalism as a freelancer because to me nothing is more pleasurable than finding out new things and telling people about them.
Yeah.
And so people go, "Oh, you're still working?" I go, "I'm not working. I'm telling stories, and that could never be work to me." But I understand your philosophy. It's different, and I would think that it's for a certain very specific audience, and not for. I'll admit that I'm a news junkie, and maybe that's. I'll
Well,
read
yeah.
everything, but Kira, an intriguing model that you have there, and I'm sure there are people that would like the scope of what you're offering. So I really appreciate you coming on here on Tales from the Beat and explaining this. And again, tell people the name of the service and how they can subscribe to it if they would like to.
Yeah, absolutely. So our name is informed.now, which is also our website. And you can sign up through the website, which is really easy, takes about 2 to 3 seconds. Or you can text our toll free number, which we run the biggest toll free number for news in North America.
Mhm.
And you can text hello and take it from there. You'll be directly into the service flow. The toll free number is 844-406 info, which is
Okay.
4636.
Mhm.
And we're really easy to reach. We're looking for the news minimalists, among us, and
Okay.
we're looking to give people the power of facts in the convenience of their palm. Ed, thank you so much for having me. But I have to answer what you said.
Yeah.
Before we jump off. I
Yeah.
don't think I don't think we are that far apart in terms of our philosophies at all. In fact, we have a meaningful minority of users that are journalists from
Mhm.
all across the range of ideological spectrum, the
Yeah.
political spectrum. And one of the things we take a lot of pride in is that we are able to bring together the CNN journalists and the Fox News journalists in
Yeah.
the same to the same watering hole and provide what we really define as a newswire, right? Like we do the work of a newswire where we democratize the access to the newswire for the end reader. We also empower more journalists to tell better, clearer stories because that is important work, right? And
Yeah.
that work is not going anywhere because readers understand many things through stories, right? That's how humans contextualize the world. And so,
Sure.
in many ways, we also empower that work, right? We empower the work of journalists that are looking to expand their primary source muscle and expand their coverage and get access to stories that they otherwise would have to spend hours to undig. And that isn't to replace their work, but it is to empower them to do more with less, especially in an environment that seems to be shrinking on a really important profession.
All right. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Thanks a lot. Kira Shishkin, creator, CEO of Inform.now. And thank you all for checking out this episode of Tales from the Beat. I'm Ed Garston. I hope you'll share, comment, subscribe to the podcast. I'll be back very soon with more tales. Thanks a lot. Take care.